Today we have our another new episode, and this episode is very very important because we will discuss on future mobile and smartphone. We have our world class expert, Professor David Smith, Mr. Dan, Mr. Adam, Nicholas, and me, Mr. Raja Kulasekara Sukaran from Indian. So I want to start from Professor David Smith, future mobile and smartphone. I just want to point some challenges or case from Asia Pacific. Regularly, we get call from education industries, heavily from South Asia, especially. Many of the education institutions actually dying because of COVID. Many of the organizations cannot move forward. Many of the people actually go for unemployed. So how actually, let's say, mobile technologies and different kind of technology we can use, and at least we can save different organization and academy. This is actually real life. I'm sure our audience will observe this show, and hopefully they will get excellent guideline from our speakers, Professor David Smith.
Well, the future of mobility and smartphone is a topic that's near and dear to me. Um, One of the things I love to ask people is that uh, do you have a device that costs more than $100 and doesn't have a chip in it? And the answer is it's really hard to find devices that are not digital devices anymore and that have some function of digital to it. And the reality is today is we're moving to a time of ubiquitous connectivity. Many devices are connected to networks or other network types of things, and it doesn't work. So, what is the value proposition we have on mobile today? And the value proposition is really interesting. In my mind, the value proposition is it's always accessible, always owned. It's authenticated personal access to the global digital ecosystem. Always
Mhm,
accessible, always owned, secure to the digital ecosystem. And to
mhm,
me, that is almost the perfect definition to frame what mobile communications is and what our smart devices are. In the write-up that came out on this session today, the term smartphone was used. I for
mhm,
one, have quit using the term smartphone. I
mhm,
use the term smart device because if you think of it, how much of percentage of time that we use our smart device do we use as a phone?
mhm,
Probably a smaller part. How much more do we use it as a computing device, a GPS device, an entertainment device, um, a camera, textual messaging of all different types? It has become so much more than just a smartphone. And that, to me, Sharif, is part of what's changing the future of education by using these mobile devices too. One of the technologies that we have in one of our products is I can use your smart device, use the camera on it and its display, and I can put myself as a 3D hologram on your screen with whatever your camera's looking at. So you can point your camera at your desktop, and on your screen, I can appear there and stand next to your computer and talk with you, interact with you that way. So it's a place where I'm taking augmented reality using your mobile device to begin to change, yes, even the future of education, because it
mhm,
let us become more of a guide. I remember back as you look at the old readings about the times of Socrates when he was in the Agora marketplace teaching. And his style was let me walk and show you, let me interact with you and tell you and show you. And by showing you, you will learn. Well,
mhm,
we kind of lost that in university teaching. We still have some of that in K through 12 teaching, but it's far in between. So this whole digital revolution, this digital transformation, that the mobile device is going to be here is one of the key elements for the future. And we really need to see it because it's personal, portable, connected, extensible by apps. And what is the other thing that our mobile devices have now? It is full of sensors. It can tell me how fast I'm walking, where I'm walking, what my blood pressure is. It can sense my mood. If I'm falling, it will know if I'm falling. All of these things within that same mobile device. So I really have fun with people when they tell me it's their smartphone. And I can go on for 10 minutes telling you all the other features and functions in it. But to me, that's a great way to get into this topic because the smartphone is just an old acronym that is way out of place today as we look at our mobile devices. So, Sharif, I think that's not a bad high-level intro.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Professor. Mr. Dan.
Yeah, topic close to my heart as well, being a person in the amateur radio world. I mean, I've got my smart device, a little handheld HT, got my call sign on it there, KK6 VDR. This is kind of what's called a line of sight communication device. But, you know, amateur radio, it's kind of funny because at the time it was getting popular, the government of the United States wanted to exclusively have it be the province of the military, the Navy. They said, this is too important, you know, for civilians to play around with. But there was one guy, he's actually considered the founder of our amateur radio relay league, Hiram Percy Maxim. He knew a lot of Congress people, and he lobbied them. He said, no, this is something that we need to keep in the public domain because Americans are handy, they're experimenters, they're ingenious. Let them play around with this, and we'll be leaders in this field. Because if you take it away and just make it a military thing, you're going to lose out on that. So fortunately, he convinced them not to do that. And it's kind of funny, the name ARRL, American Radio Relay League. Hiram was also very cheap. And in those days, it was expensive to send a telegram. He wanted to buy a particular part, a valve, a tube from Connecticut. He lived out on the other coast. So he said, hey, he sent messages to all the people he knew that were amateurs and said, if you please relay my order to Connecticut for this part. And it did. The order was relayed. He got the part, and he didn't have to pay $1 a word for a telegram to Connecticut. So he was an innovator and a cheapskate. I'm kind of a cheapskate too, and I love technologies that have the potential to fail back non-destructively. You know, in computing, there's a term called failover, where when one part of the computing system fails, it automatically switches to a part that's still working. I think we need that for civilization. We need failback technologies. Every city has got to have ubiquitous text capability at least. And this is something you can do without paying network charges. You could actually take an old cell phone and install a app on there called Bridgeify, and it uses the Bluetooth radio in the phone to talk about 100, 200 feet away to another person who's got that app running. And basically, this is a way you could send text messages all around your neighborhood as long as you've got someone in range. So I think just as an emergency kind of preparedness thing, every neighborhood should find people with old smartphones, put the Bridgeify app on it, and in case, you know, they're not ham radio people and they can't use their cell phones because the towers are offline, they can at least start sending text messages. And this is called mesh networking. It's every additional device in the network improves the robustness, the range, the reach, the speed of the network. So I know we have people that may be challenged in technology and finances. But almost everyone can find an old cell phone. Doesn't even have to have a SIM card in it. Doesn't have to be connected. Again, this is a way to repurpose old devices and still get important technology. Another great app is called What 3 Words. You can install this app, and it names every 10 foot by 10 foot or 3 meter by 3 meter square of Earth gets a 3-word name. So between Bridgeify and What 3 Words, you could, in a disaster, you could check on people, and you could check in and say, hey, this location, has an incident going on. We need some help, in so and such form. So that's kind of my old school take on smart mobile is, let's get an infrastructure that is robust and low cost and effective, because the latest, greatest state-of-the-art devices are fine, but when they go down, you want to have a backup plan. And I'll have more to say on that in a bit, but yield the floor. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. We have our our board ambassadors, World Talent Economy Forum. They are young, very energetic, and they are trying to contribute for World Talent Economy Forums. So Mr. Adam and Mr. Nicholas. So I want to start from Mr. Adam, then Mr. Nicholas. Mr. Adam, how do you want to analyze today's topic? First, Mr. Adam, then Mr. Nicholas. Mr. Adam. Adam, unmute, please.
Oh yeah, I do apologize. Keep doing that. Okay. Sorry, I'm not. Oh, so to illustrate how quickly technology has evolved in my lifetime. I'm 31, but even in my lifetime, I was born in 1981. I remember 1989. Excuse me. I remember during the first half of my life, up until I was about in my early to mid-teens, I remember the world before the explosion of social media and widespread smartphone usage. Of course, there were social media platforms like MySpace and Xanga and Bebo. I think they don't exist anymore. So MySpace and chat rooms like MSN Messenger. And we had flip phones like the earlier Motorola cell phone models, for example. And then about my late teens, early 20s, we all witnessed the explosion of people using multiple social media platforms and using smartphone devices to outsource a lot of brain power, memories, and ideas and labor. Nowadays, individuals usually spread themselves across multiple social media platforms and networking apps. Like me, for example, I have or have used and have experience using Facebook, obviously, Telegram, Trello, Slack, Twitter, and for my writing and for work and stuff. And I use my phone again to sometimes relax and watch music and interesting videos and all kinds of interesting audio visual content. And of course, the algorithms are designed to keep feeding you more of what these algorithms think you would be interested in seeing, either for the first time or again repeatedly. So without being too hyperbolic, we need to address and wrestle with the problems such as smartphone addiction and internet addiction, and addiction to upsetting images and videos, which cause an unhealthy level of desensitization. That is a real danger, especially when mental health is impacted and physical health too. I've noticed people's posture worsen over time, and the way people carry themselves when they are kind of 1,000 yards there from being exposed since toddlerhood to super stimuli are found in nature. Super stimuli our agricultural and hunter-gatherer ancestors never had to deal with. I think it's Jaron Lanier, if I pronounce his name right, who writes about social media, the dangers of social media. So our technology has evolved faster than we can keep up. and it's getting faster. But of course, slowing down innovation is something no one earning or no corporation earning millions and billions of pounds, dollars, etc. would consider. It would be out of the question for them. I think they just want to go faster and faster. Thank you, Sharif.
Thank you, Mr. Nicholas.
Yeah. So first we had a discussion about and what it's a misnomer calling smartphones smartphones. It is not a phone. It is a device. That was very acute, very accurate to say that, because people do their jobs, their lives, their careers on a smartphone, on a smart device. It's everything now. Yeah, and for example, I live in China, and I remember when I was 15, 16, starting to drive, and one Christmas, my parents would get me a GPS device, and it would be its own individual unit. And I remember it because it helped me so much. I could get a delivery job with it. But now in China, they never even seen this device. And when I tried to explain it to some friends, they don't understand. They just think I'm talking about a phone. So the disconnection today and even 15 years ago is amazing. Phones are today a power in a way. And another way, it's making us more than humans. And essentially, existentially, we're cyborgs today. We're part machine now because we have these phones attached to our hands. It could be called an addiction, but it's also just how people live life now. Checking their email, trading stocks, business. They just need their phone. Daniel brought up the situation where if the networks go down, and to message local and friends. And that's great, and that would be good. But even 5 minutes of the internet going black today could have catastrophic effects in this world on how much we're using internet and technology today with phones, with devices. Another thing I want to bring up is that having a smartphone is more than just being connected. It's also a way for financial freedom and financial stability. And especially in developing nations, it's going to be this generation that for the first time, they're able to have a generational wealth just by having smartphones. And I'll explain. Essentially, blockchain and cryptocurrency can do this. So many young investors in the Philippines, for example, are investing into cryptocurrency. And already you hear stories of young millionaires in the Philippines because of this. And it's all done on the phone. They don't need laptops and desktops. They go on their phone, download an app, and put in their savings and invest. So it liberated them. It made them grow, and it's amazing. So smart devices are essential. Eventually, the UN should just decide that it's a human right to have a smart device, and internet. These should be human rights at this point. Thanks. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Professor David Smith. As we are discussing about different features of the mobile technologies, and definitely USA is the best place for different kind of innovations and research and this kind of things. Still, I believe that we need more collaboration on that particular point, research and innovations. My question is that as you are expert, you are running tech companies, you are CTO for big tech companies. So how actually the developing nations can make more collaboration, especially I know there are many corporations, they may want to engage with this kind of innovations and research.
Well, that's a great question of how to do it. And part of it goes back to the concept of how innovation happens. One of the truisms that I believe we've seen over the last 20 years is that small entrepreneurs, small companies can innovate very rapidly. Large corporations have a hard time innovating, but they can scale well. Where for a small company, a startup, an entrepreneur, they cannot scale well at all. So what you're seeing is that to push the area ahead in this type of thing, you've got to bridge those gaps, because I can invent, but to scale at mass, particularly with a hardware device, you have to have the ability to scale. Now, on the other hand, what these mobile devices allow us to do is innovate with software. And if I'm innovating with software, I can do that anywhere in the world at any time. One of my good friends who used to live here in Austin writes applications for the smart devices. And I love his lifestyle. He moves from international beach to another international beach, all with his notebook, sitting on a table by the beach, and that's how he runs his software company for the mobile environment. So it truly is, Sharif, to your point, I can innovate in software for mobile devices really with very little overhead. I can innovate for the world. I can even use sandboxes and test beds that are not in my country, but I can access them with the digital connectivity that we have. So what is needed in the country, Sharif, for you to do this? What you really need is to set up collaborative hubs. It could be incubators, it could be accelerators, it could be co-working facilities when COVID's not as bad. It could be many of those, but those are increasingly becoming virtual. Uh, some of the companies I've worked with in the past in Europe still reach out, and we do virtual mentoring sessions with them because of how they're doing it. Is it, to me, I really love the in-person ones, but on the other hand, I can do more of the virtual ones than I can in-person ones. So you've got that side. So it's really, how do you set an innovative mindset? How do you set an entrepreneur experience? How do you change the education systems to encourage that? Are there government regulations that could be put in place to encourage that, such as a free trade zone, where if the products are developed in that zone, they're exempted from local taxes for a period of time? All of those are things that help in innovation, particularly in this mobile space, because this mobile space is not going away. You know, what's interesting, if I look at the global population of people above 15 years old, that's about 5.3 billion people. But the other statistic is there's over 4.5 billion smartphones. There's over 5 billion pure old-fashioned mobile phones still out there. So if I do my math, many of us have at least two devices, and that's growing. And you take the car is also now becoming a smart device, smartphone, with its connectivity and with everything going there. And one other statistic on the mobile device that just really got me, Sharif, is if you look at the identifiers of people who monitor websites, today over 65% of all website traffic comes from a mobile device. So that its importance is doing nothing but growing. And it's a place where small countries on the software side can compete with a large country. A developing nation can compete with a developed nation, particularly on the software side. Hardware, with the testing and everything, still an expensive proposition. But partnerships do work there as well.
Excellent, excellent. I just get some good idea and solution. I'm sure our audience also gets some good idea and solution. And especially from my corporate careers, I observe, like, the developing nations, they start their business 10 to 15 years, then they become big. That time they need research, innovations, collaborations, and this kind of things. So definitely this is the good idea. And the audience, those who observe our show, I'm sure that we have a very expert panelist, those who are highly innovative and capable and professionals. The audience definitely can get some sort of support. And this is the way of improvement. This is the way of developments. This is the way that we need to think differently and work differently. So these people are expert and they can help each other. So Mr. Dan, Mr. Professor David Smith bring one important points, like for innovations, we need to train our peoples. We need to develop our peoples. This is very, very important, especially even not only people. I believe our entrepreneurs need training and developments. There are many traditional business organizations now, they are struggling, but how we can do that because of lack of innovations, lack of proper technologies. uh, this is the major challenges of developing nations. So how we can overcome these kind of things?
I've said it before, the main resource available to humans is the human resource, and the companies that do best are the ones that take care of their human resource. They pay them well, they cross-train them, they pay for their education. These are the kind of companies you want to not only patronize and work for, but start. If you're starting a company, make sure that you have a people-centered ethic. We talk about the triple bottom line in social entrepreneurship: people, planet, and then profits. You have to, there's no business that's going to happen on a dead planet. And, some people say that the lift has already gone from under the wings. We are plummeting downward as a society, as a civilization. We just now are bracing for impact. We have so many broken systems. The problems are so huge, and but don't despair, because humans will wake up when they're confronted with a catastrophe. 4 days after Pearl Harbor, the government said to the automakers, "Look, you guys have to switch to wartime production. No more civilian cars." We can have a level of command economy. People don't like to hear it, but when you're in a catastrophe, you have to take steps that will solve the problem. And it's great to have leisure activities and the latest, greatest entertainment device. But, when you're talking about problems of life and death, survival, you have to start checking out the rations on the lifeboats and, making sure that you're going to save as many people as possible. One of the big things in human history was the invention of language, of course, because there was no way to pass knowledge along to the next generation. And there's evidence that advanced civilizations may have actually existed before this one, and they met with cataclysmic ends, and there's hardly any evidence left of them even. So I think as we develop technologically, we also need to develop, in a holistic, robust way. You look at the Sumerian, their smart device was a little handheld clay tablet, and they had a stylus, and they just by tipping the stylus different ways, they could make dozens of different characters. Now, what if we took our phonics, all the common mouth sounds that people can make, and we came up with a stylus language that expressed those sounds? You would then have like a universal translator, because the same combination of sounds that a mouth makes in one area can be understood by someone in another area. They just say, "Oh, that person's speaking so-and-so language," or, "Oh, those sounds correspond to this language." So I would actually like to propose bringing back the original smart device and call it something like stylophonics. Let's have you can take soil, you can get the clay out of it just by adding some water, shake it up. Okay, there's the clay. You can You can make a little soft clay block, and you could make a triangular stylus and start having fun with that. It could be like the new trading card, and it could actually, be something that survives from our civilization. So that would be one thing. Learn Esperanto. Esperanto is a synthetic language that was conceived by a Polish professor and around the turn of the century, and it was an idea to make a language that didn't have all these crazy conflicting rules like English does. And in fact, if you study and learn Esperanto, it will make learning any other language about 40% easier. Just because it's rationally thought out. Like, if it's a noun, it ends in an O. If it's an adjective, the word ends in an A. And you hear it spoken, it sounds a little like Italian, or it's a very fun language. So, connectivity doesn't just start with the high-tech device. It starts with language, and it starts with being involved in your community. And let's look ahead, but let's not lose sight of the backward view that made us into a technological civilization. And let's protect what we have, and by being smart and proactive. So get trained in CERT, Community Emergency Response Teams. That's a free training online. Ham radio training is free online. Get to know your neighbors. Start a little free library. These are things anyone can do, and let's make sure we get the unbanked and the unphoned and the unidentified included in this global project, because it's going to take all of us to brace for impact.
Thank you. Mr. Adam.
Thank you, Sharif. I agree with Nick and David. The term smartphone is indeed a misnomer, because we use them for so many things, and we actually use them as phones, at least compared to what we do use them for mainly, i.e. video chats, Zoom meetings, texting, social media surfing, and entertainment. So the term smartphone device is indeed a more accurate description. The name phone seems to have just stuck for some reason. I concur with David and Nick with regards to that particular aspect. I also agree with Nick about the cyborgization of people, both on an individual level and on a collective level. We are indeed cyborgs now. We are cyborgs. Obviously, this real life cyborgization is not as dramatic as we see in motion pictures and television shows, fortunately. But yes, we are cyborgs, remote cyborgs, as we don't have them inside our bodies yet. People hold them in their hands so much anyway, some people might as well be born with them or have them grafted into their hands. I would use the term crypto-cyborg, although I'm sure somebody else has coined that term already. And I remember people saying the same thing about glasses as being a kind of like proto-cyborg development. On a personal level as well, my relationship to these devices has changed a lot over time. So a few years ago, I worried quite a lot about the aforementioned kinds of addiction, like it was a kind of digital opium or a more portable miniature one-armed bandit slot machine. So I demoted myself back down to an old-style mobile phone, just calls and texts, no internet either. Then I could see that a lot of opportunities were passing me by because of this step down from the mainstream network, and I could feel the effects of feeling like I was being left behind or like I was missing out, like FOMO, which is very unpleasant for young people, for all people. And I am grateful I went back to having an iPhone this time, and I did. It was quite timely because shortly after that, more really interesting opportunities came my way by way of being equipped with a smartphone and needing to sustain working relationships, and the work these opportunities afforded me was made possible by being equipped with a smartphone and being reachable by other people who were relying on me. So these devices afforded me sustained collaborative relationships, as well as having the opportunities coming my way in the first place that eventually led onto these continued collaborations. And furthermore, smart devices have made it possible to access more knowledge than probably ever before. And it's like having thousands or even millions of equivalents to the libraries of Alexandria resting in your palm. So it's amazing that so many people still get distracted by certain things like cat videos, like I do. But yeah, so my relationship has changed regarding my personal use of them as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Nicholas.
Sorry, I have to turn off the fan every time. It's pretty hot here.
That's what
So we were talking also about being entrepreneurs, and that's great. But I think right away people need to start learning the value of investing and like ideas of dividends and passive income and DeFi. DeFi is decentralized finance, and this is what cryptocurrency and blockchains are offering now. So let's say you have 500 US dollars. You're able to put it onto these DeFi platforms and make sometimes up to like 15-20% of your money every year. And even the newer ones are offering up to like maybe 400% a year for your investment. And it's called staking or liquidity pools. And these are, this is something that smart devices can offer everybody. You grab a phone, you download these apps, you transfer whatever money you can, and you buy the Bitcoin or Ethereum, and you join these pools to provide liquidity, and you're paid for doing that. It's called proof of stake, and it's amazing. And if you go on something called Reddit.com and you join cryptocurrency groups, people are just talking about it. Young people are doing it. They're leaving their jobs already because they made so much money. And entrepreneurship is great, but investing and learning financial abilities that you have today is even more essential. For example, there's one company, we're talking about banking the unbanked, and they're called Telcoin. Telcoin is trying to get into the remittance market. And what that is transferring money from one country to the next, like a Western Union. But it'll all be done on the app. You can do what I'm talking about with DeFi. You can stake your money and earn percentages back. You could transfer direct money to money for 2% fees. And it can also be sent to people without a smart device. And that's one of the biggest things it's doing. So Telcoin is an amazing project, and they've been going for 4 or 5 years already. And only now, they're actually breaking open. From Canada to Philippines, you can transfer money from Canadian dollar to Filipino peso. And that, if that's one thing people take away from me today, is go look up Telcoin. It's not financial advice. It's just a great project. You can find other projects like that, like BABB. It's another banking app that's doing something similar. There's just so many options right now with cryptocurrency and DeFi, and I encourage people to do that. Right from your smart device. Don't need a computer. Don't need a big education of blockchain. Just start reading about how to take your Bitcoin, put it on these websites, and staking them for money back. Okay.
Professor David Smith, as you were discussing on innovation, very good idea, excellent idea. You are talking about educational improvement, new hub for collaborations and partnerships. This is actually excellent idea. One thing, it's my I love to learn. Example, how actually USA corporate culture develop. You run a corporations. Yes, I work for different corporate bodies in developing nations. Yes, I want to say that we have to handle 2,000 employees and more than that sometimes. But I'm a big fan of corporate cultures. I think this is the things we can improve. Even when we are discussing about future mobile, smartphone technologies, this area, I think that developing nations corporate need to improve, and how they can do the global branding. What is your advice? What is the inner strategy behind that?
Well, you queued up 3 different ideas there. Let
Yes,
me
yes.
kind of attack them in some semblance of order. First, the corporate culture.
Mhm.
I seem to be using this phrase way too much the last couple of months, but COVID changed our view of corporate culture. And I don't know if any time in the near future we're going to get back to a semblance of what corporate culture was before. Um, corporate culture used to be how I interacted with those I could touch, feel, talk to. Now the touching feeling is out of it. So part of corporate culture is how can you instill at a distance a sense of belonging, a sense of mission, a sense of purpose. And that has to come from not just top down, where a lot of corporate culture in the past was driven. The corporate culture today is driven more horizontally. It's how are you working with those your day-to-day peers, because some of the flow down principles of the past do not work well digitally. And we're seeing new approaches to trying to do that. We know that town digital don't work well. We know that sending a mass email doesn't work well. So how can we begin to touch on ways to put a sense of belonging, a sense of future mission, a sense of future drive together? And it's we have to think differently, and we have to think more horizontally, as well as keeping the vertical axis there. Um, in the entrepreneur side, the biggest advice for entrepreneurs in this new innovative world is you have to think globally from day one. You know, outside of the personal services industry, what is one of the first things an entrepreneur does? They put up a website and they publish it globally. And so, in some ways, de facto, from the first time you're ready to put a product in the marketplace, you're a global company now. And your emphasis might not be there, the language might not be there, the local customizations might not be there, but your marketplace is global. And we need to teach entrepreneurs that concept so that as they design before they launch, they build a platform, an application that can easily adapt to a global marketplace. And if you do that early in a product design, it's easy. If you develop a product without it and go back and try to make it global, it's hard. So the ability for foresight. Uh, I actually, most of the people on the screen haven't heard this from me, but there's a reason your windshield in your car is bigger than your rearview mirror in the back window. It's because while we want to know where we've come from, we want to learn from that, but we need to look at where we're going even more. If we're going to be agile, if we can move at speed, we have to look out that front windshield. And that to me, particularly in this connected digital world, that is one of the most important things for young entrepreneurs to do today, as well as the existing large companies who are struggling to reinvent themselves. They need to think of the past, but they have to plan for the future further down the road today than their headlights will shine. And that is some of the best advice I can give as you start looking at that. You cannot develop a product for today because by the time it's in the market, it's already tomorrow.
Mhm. Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Dan.
Yeah, that's true about a good analogy about the windshield versus the rear view mirror. And it's kind of a slightly ironic bit of Hollywood filmmaking trivia is that if you ever see a shot where they're shooting through the windshield at two people inside a car, they never have the rearview mirror up there. It's like the Hollywood director of photography that, yeah, that's just ugly. Get that out of there. So maybe a little commentary on how Hollywood is conditioning us not to look back, but just to charge ahead with eternal, hypnosis of entertainment. And yeah, it's a great point about the cyborgization and the desensitization that's taking place. Jaron Lanier, yeah, one of my heroes. He wrote that book. I think it's 10 Ways Social Media is Ruining Your Life. It's not being conducive to long-term thinking or to human contact. I mean, there's so many downsides. I mean, we've really become caught in the thrall of this, baubles and doodads and gizmos, and just like monkeys love a shiny thing, they get entranced or hypnotized by it, and we have to not let that kind of techno digital hypnosis take our humanity. I love like the steampunk and the solar punk movement, because they kind of resurrect all this retro futurist stuff from like the Jules Verne kind of era, when there really was a wider possibility of how the future could manifest. So I would I know we're getting close to the end here on time, but again, I just think the future of civilization is right there in your neighborhood. If you're alienated from your neighbors, you're not going to have a very good civilization that can save itself, or maybe that is even worth saving. So we need to use technology to reconnect with our communities, and the maker movement is one great way. The open source movement, there's so much happening in that space. It's a worldwide. You can buy now a Raspberry Pi for just insanely cheap, and Python is such a powerful language that has all these libraries that will talk to the Raspberry Pi. There's what are called shields you can put on your Pi that can do anything from set up home hydroponic systems or mesh networks. If the power goes down, maybe have a plan, like who's got solar panels, who can let the people charge their devices on whose regenerative, renewable power. Anyway, that's the kind of stuff I'm going to be talking about for my city, and I hope every city can share these ideas and make not just a smarter city, but a more human and humane and more nature connected city. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Adam.
Thank you. I was quite happy to hear Dan mention the possibility of past civilizations that may have evolved to a technological climax like we are doing, yet possibly destroyed themselves and wiped themselves off the face of the earth, just like you could say we are also doing. We're also in the process of doing, it could be said, could be argued. So with this in mind, I wondered if tropes in mythology, legends, fantasy fiction, stories of occultism, like magic mirrors, black mirrors, scrying, mesmerism, spells, are descriptions of ancient technologies like ancient counterparts to smartphones, computers, televisions, electronic custodians of knowledge, as they may have been used by extinct civilizations tens or hundreds of millennia ago. The language to describe them became more primitive after the knowledge, the expertise, the know-how was lost, and that technology along with it. And that's back again with our civilization. But that is a bit off the deep end, I know, it's a bit fanciful, but maybe, I think so. Anyway, so to concur with Dan a bit more there, I think the erosion of impulse control and delayed gratification, long-term goal setting and achieving can be explained partly or mainly by the widespread normalization of excessive smart device consumption. And I find it quite unsettling to try and imagine in my mind how my brain compares to my parents just from one generation ago. Do they have neocortex made of steel, whilst mine is a wet sponge, just to illustrate my point. Well, I hope not. And also, I don't think it'll be too long now before we move past the remote cyborg, crypto cyborg level, and probably the next decade or two, we might start to see people wear contact lenses that project, the images from the internet onto our retina, and other things inside our bodies. Thank you, Sharif.
Thank you, Mr. Nicholas. Mr. Nicholas, can you hear me? Anyway, I think there is some internet problem. So I directly want to go for the concluding remarks. Before I go for the concluding remark, this is a really great session, especially how we get some idea. Actually, World Talent Economy Forum is exactly working on that particular points. We need more collaborations. We need more partnerships. We need like more relationship with the global communities. And definitely, from my corporate experience, I find that still we need improvement. Still we need to do more focus on research and innovations. And definitely this is the ultimately solution in that COVID era, because there are many traditional organizations. They have to integrate it with the technology. Yes, I know many multinational company already they are involving with this ecosystem, but still I believe there is a big room. We need to create our relationship with all of the small medium enterprise, with the mobile and smartphone technology, with internets, with this kind of research hub. So I directly want to go for the concluding remarks. I start with Professor David Smith. Mr. Nicholas, after that I'm coming to you. Yeah, Professor David Smith.
Sharif, I love this great session today. A lot of wisdom I've heard coming out as we've been talking through this topic. Mobile devices today are more about data, more about 5G, 6G than we've seen before. Consumption, the curve of the data we're using on our mobile devices is continuing to climb. And if we look at just the data that is going into the network from a smart car, it is on the order of 400 gigabytes of data per day for the advanced smart cars. We look at the amount of data being used for smart cities, smart communities, that will continue to climb. As we look at the Internet of Things that's going to climb. And what's interesting is our smart mobile devices are often one of the control points for what we're doing with our lives today. I can control my security system, my thermostats, I can control ovens, I can control the garage door, I can start my car all from my smartphone and use it that way. And so you're going to see that. The other thing, though, that I think is a very interesting point is I bet you even most of the people on the panel today, our smart mobile device has become, in some ways, our best friend. I know when I'm traveling in particular, my mobile device is what wakes me up in the morning. It's one of the last things I do before I fall asleep at night. The amount of times I look at the screen and check things, I've given up trying to count. I had a screen time recorder on my device. I turned it off because I was embarrassed on how many hours I'm on the phone a day.
Mm-hmm.
And you see those things, but that to me is saying it has become a ubiquitous device. And it's being converged into our lives through many other converged devices. And that to me is the future of this direction and where we're going and what we need to do. So, Sharif, thank you very, very much. It's been a great session.
Thank you, Professor, for your continuous support, especially all of the innovative mind. When they work together, highly professional peoples, I am sure there are some good things will happen in the futures. And we believe we want to get engaged with 1 million people. And this 1 million people, if they get support like you peoples, they can change their society. So that is
Well,
the way I think we can grow together. Mr. Nicholas, what's your concluding remarks today?
Well, yeah, I used to feel the same way, even, and I'm much younger. No offense, but that I'm on my phone too much. I'm looking at screens too much. But it's not the time on the phone that matters. It's the quality of time on the phone. If you're playing a lot of games, obviously that's not good. But if you're reading, you're looking, researching, you're trying to educate yourself, that's all the more power, and it's all the more capable with technology and smart devices. It's not just bad because it's a screen. I think that's wrong thinking. I don't think it's bad because it's just a screen. I think it's bad because of how people are using it mostly. I imagine the years and years of hours of man time spent on TikTok or Facebook, how much wasted man hours go into social media now that people can use to develop the world. That's bad. But on the flip side of that, how many people have gotten degrees, education, and money, business, finances from it? So it kind of balances out. And that's how we should use it. We could use it for entertainment, but as much entertainment as you get from it, you should be taking some type of quality education from it. I have 2 phones, one for games, one for operations, learning, communication, social media. I try to separate it. Just learn more about liquidity pools, staking cryptocurrency. These things are how you can become financially free within the next decade. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dan, what's your concluding remarks today?
Well, I know everyone's in love with connectivity and more of it, but one of the most contentious subjects recently here in Thousand Oaks at a city council meeting was the subject of 5G and the rollout of 5G, which is kind of being done in a very loosely permitted way. I mean, they're putting these 5G signal transponders on light posts, every few hundred feet, and this is getting to a pretty high frequency range where the possibility for biological effects are not absent, and they're not fully known. The European Union has something called the precautionary principle that says, if there's a technology that seems like it might have some unknown bad side effects, you need to hold off on, aggressively rolling that out. Right now the standards for radio frequency energy are pretty much just like, well, does it heat up the surface of your skin? And if it doesn't do that, it must be okay. It's a very kind of archaic standard, but we know that our cellular functions, our bioelectric processes, they happen at energy densities that are on the order of like a millionth of a volt, and it's entirely possible that some of these cellular processes could be disturbed by this huge field of high frequency energy that's getting more pervasive every day. I mean, one of the side effects is difficulty concentrating. So, not to mention, even worse things like, long-term cancer risks and whatnot. So I would just put in a vote for the precautionary principle. If there's a way to do something without risking people's health and safety, let's go that way first, and let's move slowly when lives are at risk. And thanks.
Thank you.
For letting me participate today.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Churchill. You joined with us. We are actually closing our session, but I will give you a chance for 5 minutes for your speech. I want to give chance to Mr. Adam. Mr. Adam, yes.
Hello, Adam.
Uh,
Hello, Dan. Thank you,
yes,
Sharif.
Hi.
yes, Adam. What's your concluding
Oh,
remarks,
sorry.
Mr.
Yeah,
Adam?
yeah, no problem. No problem. Thank you. So I just wanted to quickly say, portable smart devices are here to stay. So we have to reorient ourselves around it and offer assistance and helplines and lifelines to people who are concerned about whether they are using them in excess or are concerned about a loved one or a close friend possibly using them in excess. Because we have passed the booster rocket stage, we are here. Smart devices are here and they're here to stay. And it won't be long before the Internet of Things explodes, as well as the normalization of implantable smart devices. And like with what David said, I also feel very embarrassed sometimes about the idea of other people working out how addicted I might be just from seeing my writing and posts, which are quite frequent sometimes. So I became, I become concerned that people might think I'm, confined in one room, lurking around in the dark with the curtains drawn. But I do other things. But again, also like what David said, I rely on them a lot as well. I have gotten lost in cities, so a digital map is a lifesaver. But without the device, I would have become more lost. I've saved myself from a rubbish restaurant service by reading reviews, and I may have forgotten something important if I hadn't set a reminder alarm, and so on. I think it was either Plato or Socrates lamented normalization of literature because the skill of memorizing myths and passing them down orally would become a lost art or something. So a version of that applies here when we talk about the outsourcing of a lot of our skills to these devices that do them more efficiently and consistently and more powerfully as well. And Dan made me think earlier when he said the future could have branched out in alternative ways that could be wildly different from the branch we are in. Like when he mentioned steampunk and clockwork airships, Tesla, free energy, Tataria, and so on. So that's something worth exploring one day. Again, quite fanciful. But, thank you, Shu.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Churchill, now your turn, but we are concluding our session, but you can
Thank you.
discuss on future mobile and smartphone.
Yes, my remarks would be brief. However, I am late due to the changes in time. I thought we were starting, but we are ending, which is a great thing since seeing all of you. I am in the western United States coast of the Pacific, and therefore time difference with Malaysia is a bit robust, especially since we have, the daylight savings time here. At this moment, what I wanted to say, and again, speaking about mobile, it was exactly my mobile that failed me in some ways to set me on the right course in order to achieve, being with you at this moment. So simple things. Will it be the fault of the operator or the fault of the time difference? It does not matter. At the end of the day, technology is just as good as we are. I found times in my life when I had no access to mobile to have been more rewarding in a human scale than the times into which I'm always in the midst of messaging and texting and emailing and having the mobile as my indispensable aide de camp. It has become part of our life. Our technology has become so we've become rather so reliant on the technology, and the technology has become so reliant on us that it is inevitable that we are leading towards a place into which it could be fully integrated into our systems. I don't need to tell you about the medical advances that are done, but I truly believe that the next generation mobiles, they would be a lot more integrated with our health, not just measuring, but promoting, our health in ways that are bound to be similar to how the physician admonishes us to do certain things. So in this instance, I wanted to suggest that the more the mobile will get integrated with us, the more we would be able to achieve better results for our personal health. And even it's adjusting to the level of intrusion that we want to get. The next generation mobiles that are seen going to be manufactured in the next 5 to 10 years, they also have levels of radiation that are possible to be adjusted by the person in terms of how much they want that radiation to reflect on their bodies. So in many, many ways, the mobile now is shifting to become a helpful aid designed accoutrement to our lifestyle. Again, I insist, it's helpful and healthful. So it will center around, promoting our personal health, and it would give us control over a lot of functions. it would give us a lot of help in the functions that we require in order to have a better life. So I am not afraid in the future of the radiation emitting by the mobile, because you would be able to adjust it accordingly. Also, the changes after 5G, and 5G being one of those things that we consider to be very smart in the terms of smartphones. Our health will be improved with the 5G, and I truly disagree with all the conspiracy theory about 5G being, somehow, the devil's mark, or causing, all sort of disturbances. I know there is a lot of rhetoric there is a lot of rhetoric out there that is pushing, theories that are completely unscientific, and the fear for the deployment, it might also have to do with certain nationalistic tendencies. I think, we are all smarter than that, and we understand that this type of technology is benign, this type of technology is helpful, and at the end of the day, the new resilient mobile technologies, both in the side of the infrastructure as well as in the side of the mobile itself that we need to carry, are becoming smarter, smaller, farther reaching, and the waves that we are trying in the future, into which, the the white space, if you will, that the mobile radio signal is transferred from, it becomes much more in tune with our body's capacities to be not affected. So I think in the next 10 years, we are going to find that the mobile is becoming less intrusive and much more successful. In this case, the most successful element that we have is that with almost the majority of the population of this earth having some kind of access into mobile, we no longer have the divide that it was between the haves and the have-nots. And I think this is the most democratizing factor of the utilization of technology for all the people. So I would expect that a lot of things are going to come through that are always probably important for us via the mobile, including polling, voting, health information, and the capacity to do a lot of our payments in the cashless society, or even in the post-cash or post-money society, because regardless of our political affiliation, we all recognize that we are moving towards a time of abundance. Yes, I know this sounds crazy, but I think you understand that we are moving towards a future of abundance, into which the relationship of our work towards the gains of the employment that we are receiving, and towards, the standard of living, would become very much measured on the average of how much it takes for everyone to survive, like the basic minimum wage, if you will, and then going above that based on our contributions effort. So the mobiles are going to be the key to delivering these things. Not yet in America, but there would be elements of it arising in Europe, and some of it eventually arising in Asia before it takes over United States, Canada, and the other countries of the Americas. The mobile would be the key way of dispensing these equitable payments for the simple survival of everyone. And here I am to tell you that I am also working in supporting the fresh mobile revolution, which is an organic mobile. And that, it goes without saying, as we look for things that are vital to our lives, we like to have them as being more sustainable, more organic, and again, health orientated. So I fully expect that the future of the mobile is probably the best it's ever been. I don't know who will deliver it, but I believe Apple will continue to be at the forefront of this revolution, and with other companies catching up to it, regardless of the operating system they use. But we do have also some new entrants into the mobile from companies that have never done this, that have never been seen on the radar, and those companies will start coming up also. And the most important companies of this will arise out of Japan, Korea, and England. We'll figure out how this thing works out, but I thank you. And again, my apologies for making a mistake by 1 hour, but here we are. I like to conclude by thanking Sharif for putting it together, and Dan, Adam, and Nicholas. And I wish you all the best for the next session. Looking forward to see you. God bless, and have a blessed
Thank
day.
you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye bye and take care. Thank you. It's, thank you. Thank you.
Please keep in touch with me, with Adam. I like to. Thank you, and Dan, of course. Bye-bye.